We are live. Thank you once again for joining me today to talk with a very interesting guest, Brittain Ladd. We'll get to Brittain in a second. First of all, I want to say thank you for being here. If you have any trouble watching this program on LinkedIn, I've heard some issues with some of the reception. You can jump over to the YouTube channel, look at armchairattorney.com. If you find this interesting, as always, please subscribe, promote this, share that you're watching it, share that you're here with us. And of course, I really do appreciate the fact that you have been tuning into the podcast, the corresponding audio only version of this program. A couple things to start off with, and then we'll have Brittain right here. So, first of all, it is Driver Appreciation Week, the end of Driver Appreciation. So, let me just say thank you, truckers. This is a little banner. Look at me go. I kind of know how it works. I'm not going to give you a bunch of platitudes about how I feel about drivers. I'll be very clear. My father has been in trucking since 1976, driving for Roadway. Not only was the truckers the ones who brought the food to the stores that we ended up purchasing, but they literally fed us. They're the ones that made everything possible for us. And it's important for us to take a moment and realize just how hard that job is to safely deliver freight on time and undamaged, to be away from your family for long periods of time, to not have adequate restrooms or the ability to take a break or to rest or to find showers. This is a challenging business. Nothing about moving freight is easy. And so I always say thank you to the truck drivers. I have my truck themed shirt specifically for the occasion. We didn't have a rail strike. Isn't that fantastic? Everyone thought maybe there would be, but it didn't seem to be. That's, a great outcome, I think, for everybody. Gunnar Miller, thank you for tuning in, man. I'm a huge fan of Gunnar Miller. As always, check out Gunnar Miller. The next thing I want to talk about is TikTok. Now, look, I don't know anything about TikTok. I don't know what a tick is or a talk, but I will say I got advice from someone very smart recently that said I probably should make one. So I have now made a TikTok. You can find me at Armchair Atty, ATTY. Why? Because ATTY is the abbreviation for the word attorney. All right. How do I know Brittain Ladd? That's the question I want to tell you about before I bring Brittain in. I first learned of Brittain Ladd from an article in Forbes from 2017. My older brother Joshua sent it to me. And in the article, it talks about a grocery store called Lidl. Lidl is a German grocery company that was trying to come to the United States. And they met with incredible adversity. See, Lidl had told everybody where they were going to put their stores. And so every big retailer, Aldi, Walmart, Kroger, said, okay, if you're going to put your stuff here, we're going to put all of our innovation directly competing with it. We are going to have a strategic entry deterrence to take a company coming across the ocean to work in the United States, and we will stop them. And they did. Oh my goodness, it was an amazing article. And that is how I first learned of Brittain Ladd. I began to follow him not long after that. I recommend anybody, if they're not following Brittain now, you absolutely should. Now, he'll be here in just 1 second, but the last thing I'll mention is we have 2 special segments later today, and you'll be joined by both of them. They put them in the comments of the actual show, so you'll see them when they arrive. But let's get to it. Brittain Ladd, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here.
I am so excited to have you as a part of this program. I have been, as I mentioned, following you for a long time, but for those who don't know who you are, who is Brittain Ladd?
So, what I do is I work globally as a strategy and business consultant. I work with companies on supply chain, logistics, the robotics and automation. I've lived and worked globally. I've lived in India, lived in China, used to live in Saudi Arabia. And I've been very fortunate over the years that I've worked across multiple industries: oil and gas, chemicals, retail. I've done mining. And because of all the work that I've been able to do, I've really learned a lot. I've been able to work with a lot of smart people. And I also started to share my thoughts on LinkedIn. And Forbes magazine, some editors from Forbes magazine actually was reading what I was writing. And they had reached out to me and they said, hey, would you be a contributor to us? And I said, sure. So I started to write for Forbes. I have BrittanLadd.com that I write articles on. And I also found that by sharing my thoughts on LinkedIn, it was a way for me to generate business for myself because I was targeting certain companies that I knew for a fact were making mistakes. And I was saying, look, this is what you're doing. I think it's wrong. If I was the CEO, this is what I think you should be doing instead. And to the credit of the companies that I reach out and write these posts about, over 80% have actually hired me for consulting. And it's not like I have to spend months and months with some of these companies. Oftentimes it's just meeting with the board or talking to a CEO and just really helping them on their strategy. And because of all of this, what I also found is I have a big following globally in the millions of people. And they just love the stuff I write. But what they like most of all, and my commitment I've always said to everybody on LinkedIn, is that I'll always tell the truth. You'll always get my honest advice, and you'll never see me criticize anyone without also giving recommendations of how a company can do something to improve, or a person can make a better decision, or things like that. And I find that people really love the honesty. The thing that separates me from everyone is I don't say, well, that might happen or that could happen. I say, I believe it will happen. I recommend they do this. And I put my opinion out there, and I can be right or I can be wrong, but people appreciate the fact that I at least have the courage to say, this is me, this is what I believe, let's see how it turns out. And because I spend hours and hours doing research, I'm about 85% accurate in the things that I've written about or wrote that I thought would happen. And it's been fun. It's been fun communicating with the audience on LinkedIn. People who reach out to me because of the Forbes articles, that's how I met you. You read a Forbes article, like you said. So it's been fun. And I just greatly appreciate the fact that people want to hear what I have to say.
What I recommend everybody when they follow you and they watch and read your posts is you let your mouse just kind of hover over all of the names, and you follow those people, you connect with them if you can, and you figure out a way to learn about what you do. Because what I find so fascinating, to your point of, you call people out, you tag them and say, I think you're making a mistake. And as a kind of an interlocutor for some of these businesses, you're able to give them the feedback that they need. Because I like to think of it as like the problems we have aren't necessarily new problems. The problems are all kind of the same, but the technology may change to make the problem easier to solve. And your background, like you served, right? You served in the military. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I served in the Marines for about 6 years.
So like where people want to learn about supply chain, learn about it in the military. Like that is where logistics really does take place. And I think that kind of exposure kind of gives you this perception. So what do you find the most interesting to look at right now? What is a segment that you go, is it robotics? Is it retail? What is getting you most excited?
In all honesty, it's a combination of things. Certainly supply chain is, I've been following everything that's going on globally in the supply chain, and I've really been trying to help people understand. You can look at it and say it's doomsday. My gosh, everything's failing.
That's right. It's the end of the world.
Or you look at it like I do and you say it's part of the job. Nowhere was it written that supply chains are infallible, that supply chains don't have variance. And nowhere is it written that there won't be changes globally, that there won't be disruptions globally. And so I've had companies reach out to me acting as if their company was just going to go under because they were having challenges with finding containers or things like that. And I'm like, who is actually running this for you? And they're like, well, we have this vice president of supply chain, and they're really smart. They came from Amazon or they came from General Electric or whatever. And I said, well, what are they saying? Well, and they'll come back at me and say, well, they're saying they can't do anything. And I'm like, then you have the wrong vice president of supply chain.
That's right.
Because
there's always a solution.
Yeah. I could put you in contact with people who actually would be able to tell you something, would be able to help it. And so I've been following that, but I have to say, I'm still really impressed with the things that's going on in retail. I love the competition out there. I love seeing what Amazon's doing. I love seeing what Walmart's doing, Target. And then as part of that, I do like still paying a lot of attention to the robotics, the automation, the micro-fulfillment. I like writing about these topics. But the thing that I find interesting, the way that I describe it, is imagine if retail is one big chessboard always in motion.
That's right.
And that is really what's going on globally. One company's making a move, another company's making a move. One company thinks you're in checkmate. The company makes a move and gets out.
Hold on a second, Brittan. I think that gives me a thought. And I'm thinking I have a question I want to ask, but I don't know how to ask it. So let me get Eric Johnson to join us. Eric Johnson from the Journal of Commerce. I am so excited to have you here. And we're not going to kick Brittan out because this is Brittain Ladd. I think you might have a couple of questions for our very esteemed guest.
Matthew, thank you so much for being on. It's an honor to be on. I've been watching your show for a while now, and to be like behind the scenes now is an honor. And Brittan, great to talk. I've been an avid follower of your LinkedIn posts for a while, and it's true. You pull no punches, which is at odds with most of what you read on LinkedIn. Super interesting what you talked about already. And let me dial it back away from the robotics and automation, because I'm a Luddite. I think about logistics, transportation, the kind of lunkhead stuff that a lot of the industry. So I found a post that you put up this week on Amazon, becoming sort of fully announcing themselves as a 3PL, a full-fledged 3PL. Yes. Super interesting. And I immediately thought back. I'll get to a question, I promise. I immediately thought back to a presentation that I did for a local CSCMP group about 5 years ago. And the thrust of the presentation was, how do you think about Amazon? Are they a competitor? Are they a customer? Are they a partner? Are they, right? Like, how do you, and it was really interesting. Who are all in logistics had not gone through that thought process to think about all the different permutations that Amazon was, right? So I guess I'm still surprised at this point that you even have to go to the lengths to write something like that, that's not in people's thought process. But it's apparently not, because you wrote in such a way that the industry is not thinking that way. So how, and sorry, Matthew, I'm jumping to this Amazon thing straight away, because
Let's do it, man.
Get into that while I'm on screen here. What do you think people are missing about what Amazon is doing? What sort of grave mistakes are they making?
Well, so when I started to write about Amazon, in about 2010, and I was working for Deloitte. And the thing that I started to write about was this phrase, that Amazon plays what I call an infinite game. The goal of Amazon isn't to win a game. The goal of Amazon is to never let the game stop. And the way Amazon never lets the game stop is that Amazon starts reinventing and creating new games, to where they're the ones controlling the ball, or they're the ones controlling the puck. And it's infinite. They literally have this ability. And I also then started to write and say, that Amazon is a virtual company, meaning that Amazon can virtually do anything it wants. And the reason why Amazon can do that is they have this rule that they think big. Now, they don't use this phrase I'm about to say, but I've applied it to Amazon. The thing that Amazon does better than anyone is what I call assumption crushing. So when you work at Amazon, if the three of us worked at Amazon and we went into a vice president and said, hey, Bob, we think Amazon should become a third-party logistics company, even though that vice president may have never thought of that ever happening, they wouldn't say, you three are idiots, get out of my office. What he or she would say is, that's interesting, write a 6-pager.
Write a memo.
And let's develop this. Let's see where this could take us.
Right.
And that means that when you come up with these ideas about something like this, Amazon embraces it. Most companies are afraid to even think about doing something like that. And so because Amazon has no fear of thinking big, and because Amazon has this attitude that no matter what we come up with, we can do, it also allows Amazon to step back and say, well, what are we doing as a company today? Where could we be in a decade? And the thing that I say about Amazon is you have to remember that Amazon is an ecosystem. They're not a company. They're an ecosystem. They have many things that they do within this ecosystem, and within that ecosystem are all kinds of customers and potential customers. So if I'm delivering product within my ecosystem and I have AWS and I'm giving people access to the cloud, Well, what I know is that somewhere in that ecosystem are people who are now dialing for diesels, and they're looking for warehousing, and they're hoping someone, can deliver shipments for them. And so because I'm Amazon and I think big and I crush all assumptions, well, why can't I apply that AWS model to my logistics network and say to people, how would you like us to be your third-party logistics company? How would you like to lease some of our warehouse space? How would you like to turn over your entire supply chain to us? Because we can do it. We proved we can do it with AWS. We proved we can execute for all things e-commerce. And now what we've done is we've invested billions and billions of dollars over the last 15 years to build the world's largest logistics network. So why do you think we're going to keep that to ourselves? We didn't build that network to only meet our needs. We built it, and I've written this, Amazon built that because they understand that they have to keep growing. And their next phase of growth can't come from retail. They've pretty much maximized all retail growth, unless they want to build more stores, but they can be doing that. So they have to grow. And the way that they're going to grow is go after a new industry, logistics as a service. And they're going to do very well, in my opinion. And I started to, and for those of you who don't know, my first job at Amazon was actually designing strategies for Amazon to become a third-party logistics company. That was my first job. That's how I got on Amazon.
You were like the Leo DiCaprio in this whole story. The Inception story. Yeah.
So that's how I got on Amazon's radar. In 2013, I was the first person to recommend Amazon to acquire Whole Foods. And I also had written an article where I said, I believe Amazon can become the world's largest third-party logistics company by 2030. So when I went to work for Amazon, that was the first thing they assigned to me to do, was design strategies for them to become a 3PL. And so when I look at what Amazon is doing today, I haven't changed my opinion. I still believe that by 2030, Amazon will probably be generating $35 billion in additional revenue to the bottom line that will be directly as a result of their logistics business. So at a high level, that's what I think people fail to understand about Amazon, is that Amazon doesn't think they're a retailer. Amazon doesn't think they're a tech company. Amazon says we are an ecosystem. And within our ecosystem are customers, but within that same ecosystem are opportunities for us to provide services to customers or create new customers. And that really gives Amazon a lot of power.
So Matthew, I have to go soon. I'm going to go before you kick me out. But one question to flip this on its head. Is it reasonable to think that some people are overestimating what Amazon could become over a certain time span? So for me, there's a question of how much are they the bogeyman versus like the legitimate threat to certain areas of business that you suggest they are. How do you thread that needle?
It's really interesting, and I've really tried to level set this with people for years. Amazon is a threat to anybody. Amazon could go buy FedEx tomorrow. Amazon, believe it or not, could go buy Walmart because they could fund it through a stock swap and 30-year bonds. Yeah. They could go buy Walmart if they wanted to. So the idea that somehow, because Amazon isn't overtly in my industry today, I'm safe. And that's the wrong way to look at it. At any time, Amazon can enter a new industry. Do I believe that Amazon is going to be successful in third-party logistics? Absolutely. Will there be some companies that will say, we're never going to do business with Amazon? Absolutely. But they're going to be the first to change their mind in about 1.5 to 2 years. My analysis when I worked at Amazon, and I could be wrong, but my analysis at Amazon showed me that Amazon would be able to perform all of the logistics functions that other third parties are doing today. But because of Amazon's network and their ability to subsidize a lot of it through AWS, Amazon can reduce the cost of managing logistics for most companies between 40 and 60%. So let's say you're Macy's and you're the CEO of Macy's, and someone comes in and says, Brittan, we can save 60% of our logistics costs if we outsourced our supply chain to Amazon. Do you honestly think you can go before the board and say, I could save you 60% of your our logistics costs, but boy, we'd have to outsource to Amazon. Why would we do that? Amazon is still going to be a competitor, whether they're moving products for Macy's on their trailers or not.
For them. Yeah.
Exactly. So I say to companies, remove this ridiculous fear you have of having Amazon be an advocate for you and leveraging Amazon to actually provide services for you, because you could collaborate behind the scenes on logistics and still compete at the store level or online. Yep. And so what's going to happen is a lot of companies are going to, and I wrote about this, I think, in that piece where I said a lot of companies are going to change their opinion. Do we look at Amazon as being an ally, or are they basically our enemy? And a lot of companies will have no choice but to say, if Amazon could save us 40% of our logistics costs, they just became my best friend.
Brittan, awesome to talk. I wish I could stick around for more, but Matthew probably wants his show back.
Yeah, so. You got to go, Eric. Thank you for stopping by, buddy. That was incredible. Brittan, I am such a big fan of like how you begin walking us through this understanding of Amazon. Is, are they the friend? Are they the enemy? And it seems pretty clear that they could be either if they so chose. I mean, has anything about Amazon really surprised you recently?
The thing maybe that surprised me about Amazon is they haven't done as good as a job as I think they should have of really being able to control more of what's going on in their warehouses, not really being able to control the message to the public and in the press as well as I think they should. I think Amazon's having some labor issues and other issues related to their reputation. And I think anytime that happens, companies need to jump on it. I think not taking care of any reputational risk is really dangerous to a company. And I know that Amazon is making some improvements, and so I think they'll get a handle on it. But in terms of the decisions that Amazon's making that are public, no, I think they've done a really good job. The other big thing, and I'm going to write about this soon, is Amazon is going to become a Shopify and an Instagram. They have a website that's letting you open your own storefront. You can be an influencer. And I knew that was coming. Yeah, I'll write something about that in probably a few days or a week. And then the other thing that is interesting about Amazon is Whole Foods. Even though I was the first person to recommend that they acquire Whole Foods in 2013, I've not really been that impressed with what Amazon has been doing with Whole Foods. And I think what Amazon needs to do is give themselves maybe one more year. And if they can't improve the sales at Whole Foods, and the way they would do that is introducing branded CPG product into the stores.
Absolutely.
And I said, change the name to Whole Foods Plus. You get the best of organics plus the branded CPG products you want. My argument for Amazon doing this, and I wrote this when I worked at Amazon, is that Walmart and Kroger did a reverse of that strategy. They lured 16 million customers from Whole Foods over a 3-year period by increasing the amount of organic product that they were stocking in their stores. And people who used to go to Whole Foods now said, well, I don't need to go to Whole Foods. I can go to Walmart and I can go to Kroger and I can get everything I want. So I do believe that Amazon needs to look at that strategy. If they can't do that or won't do that, I still think it's worthwhile for Amazon to look at divesting Whole Foods. I think Target would be the ideal company to acquire Whole Foods. Amazon's got a lot of work to do in their groceries, but they're getting there. It's going to take them several more years, though, no doubt.
So how are micro fulfillment and rapid grocery delivery? Because these are companies you and I have talked about before. I am always perplexed by these companies that raise incredible amounts of money, lose every single penny in the delivery, and then have to go back to investors and say, look how much revenue we've grown. They go, well, did you ever make any money? No. Like, is there a place for these things? Like, where will they be in 5 or 10 years? Or will they just be a weird aberration?
Well, for those of you who don't know, I started working with the majority of the rapid grocery delivery companies 2 years ago, and I was an advisor to most of them. And the thing that I argued with them about the most, and by argue, I mean in a good way, what I pointed out to them is they had a very short shelf life. I said, you have about 1 to 2 years of being able to exist. And I said, the problem is going to be because you want to make deliveries in 15 minutes. I was able to mathematically prove that it would be impossible for them to generate revenue or earn a profit on anything they delivered, meaning they would lose money on every single order, whether it was 1 or 1,000 a day. Volume didn't change the outcome at all. If they delivered 5,000 orders a day, they would still lose money on every single order. And I said, what you're going to have to do is provide a service so good, and you're going to have to market it so well that you're going to capture market share quickly. And then you're going to have to do what Uber did. Uber used to just greatly undercharge for rides.
That's right.
Until they hooked you. And then all of a sudden that $10 Uber bill became $25. But by then you were so used to using Uber,
you couldn't do it. Exactly. Absolutely.
And I said, well, that's what you're going to have to do as a rapid grocery delivery company. The problem is the rapid grocery delivery companies, even though some of them were burning $80 million a month, they were only generating around $2 million a month in actual sales. So, and this is
how is this possible? How is this even possible?
Because they were just burning so much money on marketing. They were opening up micro fulfillment centers. They were hiring all kinds of couriers and everything. But some of these companies were burning $80 million a month also. Some of them were losing over $100 on every order they delivered. So let's say I order this plastic cup and I order, a package of papers, one package of copy paper. They would deliver that to me. They would deliver that to me in 15 minutes. Now, the combined basket value of those two items may be $5, but it cost them over $100 to deliver it to me when they take into account the fixed costs on their micro fulfillment centers, the courier fees, everything. The fact that they had to buy this product at wholesale and they want to try and sell it and at least break even, but they can't because they have to compete against all the other grocery retailers out there. And so what's happened is now that we're nearly into this for 2 years, is the majority of these companies have shut down. There's only 3 of them that are really left that I even used to do business with. I still have discussions with them. 2 of them are on life support. One of them, a company called Getter, is they've slowed down. I've written articles about this where I said the only way you can survive is you need to slow down.
Slow the bleeding.
Just slow down. Make the deliveries in 1 hour or 2 hour. And eventually you can use automation. Then you can pull orders together. You could add more product to choose from. And I said, you can actually then start to make money. But what I also warned them was this: grocery retailers aren't stupid. They're going to look and see what you're doing, and they're going to figure out, so how do we get Instacart or Shipt or someone else to give us that capability to maybe do deliveries in 30 minutes? GoPuff, for example. They said, well, we're not going to do it in 15 minutes, but we'll do it in 30 minutes. And they already had facilities. So they've been able to start doing deliveries in 30 minutes, and they actually do it quite well. But overall, take this to the bank. There is no such thing as a future for anyone who says we're a rapid grocery delivery company and we deliver in 15 minutes. My research I knew was 100% accurate 2 years ago. And some of these companies have burned $5 billion. And all they have to show for it is a bunch of really small micro fulfillment centers full of a bunch of inventory that they can't sell. And if it's fresh product, they throw away over 40% of it on a weekly basis. And they're still trying to survive with the exact same model. So
I feel like they invented the problem. The problem they wanted to solve was getting things faster. And like, okay, we need to get it faster. So no, it's not how they do it.
I used to think that when I first got involved. I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing. It wasn't that. What it was is they came up with a gimmick, like Uber. They came up with if you think about it, Uber was a gimmick. You had taxis. You really didn't need Uber. But Uber came up with this gimmick of, hey, use your phone and you can hail a ride and it'll come from anywhere. You'll be amazed at how fast it gets there. And so they looked at that and they said, well, what if we could do that with groceries? And our gimmick is, and they said, and we'll do it in 15 minutes. And so that's when I started to call these companies gimmick companies. The gimmick is I can deliver in 15 minutes. Now they can't make money. They'll never be profitable, but they get a lot of press. And it was really interesting. But what's happened is the gimmick wore off. And the gimmick never became more than a gimmick. So people didn't say to Gorillas and Joker and Bike and all these other companies, like, we love your service so much. How about you let us shop all of our groceries from you?
Yeah, there you go.
And it never happened. And the other thing that didn't happen is, and I said, the only way you can survive is this. You want consumers to ask this question: why is it we can get our groceries in 15 minutes, but I can't get apparel, shoes, cosmetics, electronics, and other things? And I said, if enough consumers start asking that question, then you as a rapid grocery delivery company can go to Best Buy and Walmart and Amazon and all these other companies, Macy's, and say, we'll be your rapid grocery delivery arm, and we'll be your rapid retail delivery company. Now you have a business model. Now you have something that's going to scale, but it never got to that point.
Well, I look at like DoorDash makes sense to me. I mean, I know that they're out there doing a similar thing. They're doing it generally with restaurants, but they're expanding the SKUs that they're able to fulfill. But to the rapid grocery delivery point, I think about like me as a consumer. Like I'm going to go to a store sometimes, and I'm going to order things online sometimes, and anything that doesn't give me a kind of a multiple ways to buy, I'm just not going to spend the time learning about it. If it's only a limited amount of SKUs and it's only in a few markets, like I'm not going to change my buying behavior. And as I imagine that's an impact that some of these rapid grocery folks ran into as well, is that they just didn't have enough value to bring.
Well, not only that, but most of them only operated in New York City. Very few of these companies ever left New York City. And that's why I wrote an article where I said New York City will be the graveyard of empires. Yeah. And I warn these rapid grocery delivery companies, stay out of New York. You think it's the optimal place for you to launch, but it isn't. Everything's too expensive. There's all kinds of rules and regulations, and there's too much competition. And so a few of them they launched in Chicago. Some of them launched on the West Coast. They're doing better. But yeah, these companies didn't expand their assortment because they couldn't. On average, if you're going to make a delivery in 15 minutes, you give yourself 3 minutes to pick an order, only 3 minutes. So that's why they limited the number of products to around 1,000 to 1,250. And they would have a bunch of people inside these little buildings going, okay, I've got a loaf of bread. And so this one person knew where the bread was at and grab it. Someone would say, I got crackers and I have soda. And they were like little ants, and they'd go grab it and then consolidate it. And they had the clock going, tick, 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 tick. And then the courier gets it, runs outside, throws it on the bike, and they knew that they had to have 10 minutes to pedal, and preferably no more than 9 minutes, because they could arrive in 9 minutes, get off the bike, and then go up to the apartment or whatever.
That's madness.
That's how tight they got. It was almost as if they said, we're going to be as efficient as a NASCAR pit crew. And groceries picked and delivering it to the customer. What they forgot is they left themselves no ability to win the race, meaning they would never be profitable.
Were there expectations like, okay, we'll get to a certain revenue run rate and then someone big will come and buy us? Like, wasn't Target bought Instacart? So like there's these companies where they say, okay, maybe our goal is just to get to that exit. Is that maybe the thinking they had? Or is it just always get more?
We talked about that. So that was one of the major reasons why they had reached out to me, because of my experience at Amazon and recommending they acquire Whole Foods. And also in 2017, I wrote an article where I said one of two companies will acquire Shipt, Target or Kroger.
That's right.
Yeah. And I was working at Kroger telling them you need to buy Shipt.
Yeah.
And I had just left a meeting where I said to Kroger, you've got to accelerate this. And as I was going back to my office, it came across that Target had bought Shipt.
That's a beautiful move by Target, isn't it?
It was a beautiful move by Target. Now, Shipt doesn't deliver things in 15 minutes. Target looked at Shipt as a different way. But to your point, the thing that a lot of these companies did want to have happen is a major grocery retailer would acquire them. Mm-hmm. Now, I helped several retailers actually evaluate some of these companies. The problem was the valuation. So some of these companies had already burned through $2 and $3 billion, and they're saying we're a $5 billion company. Yeah, they hardly had any software. They had no assets. Everything that they had of a building was leased. And when they're saying we're worth billions, I'm telling them point blank, I'm like, you're about a $50 million company. Why would I pay more than that? And so I was working with half of these companies, And I said, look, walk away. There's simply no value here. And I'm glad that I was willing to do that and get into the arguments with these companies, because they're like, you don't understand us. We're worth billions. I'm like, you're worth about 100 million of that. And I'm being generous. And so we didn't buy these companies. The retailers I worked on behalf of, we chose not to buy any of them. And those companies, all but 2, have gone out of business. So it goes to you.
What I love to for the audience to kind of understand is, how do you evaluate a company? So there's 2 typical ways we think about it. The most common way in investments is looking at a thing called earnings before interest, taxation, depreciation, and amortization, also called EBITDA or EBITDA. And this is a proxy for profitability. You take that number and you say, take that by a multiple, and that gives you your value. These technology companies, though, they don't have EBITDA. They don't have profit because they burn every piece of penny that they get. And so they say, oh, we're actually valued on a multiplier off of top line revenue. So forget all the money we lose. Those are things we don't worry about. We just want to look at this valuation. So a company that has $1 billion in revenue might have a valuation of 10 billion or 20 billion or some crazy number. But to your point, it doesn't last until the bankers decide we're not going to give you more money to throw away. Then they're all out of business. And that's a fascinating piece. And man, what I love about the Shipt piece, I said Instar by accident, but Shipt, it allowed Target to get revenue from non-Target retailers. The more deals Shipt creates with people, the more opportunity that they can broker the transaction of that thing, which I do find really interesting.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's smart. There are other companies out there doing that. DoorDash is really going down that path. They want to get involved in the grocery business. GoPuff is wanting to do that. The company that I write the most about, I spend a lot of time talking about, is Instacart. Now, Instacart controls 47% of the online grocery market. They have over 300 grocery clients. Now, you could make the argument that, well, then what Instacart should do is try and get 350 grocery clients or 400. And what I've been saying for years is that, no, that's false. Now that they control 47% of the online market, my argument is now's the time for Instacart to form a relationship with a grocery distributor, fire all of the grocery companies they do business with, and Instacart becomes an online retailer, and they sell direct to all those millions of customers who use their platform. 100%. And because Instacart already has everything set up, it would be one email. We're proud to announce that we are now Instacart Direct. All groceries you order through our platform will be delivered by an Instacart resource.
I love that, because like, you think about Instacart doing that, like when there's a company called Treehouse, and a lot of people have heard of Treehouse. Treehouse makes private label products. So they're the ones that make the Kirkland. They're the ones that make the house product for Walmart. But these platforms like an Instacart, if they had their own branded, like get that reputation of a Kirkland, they would be so more competitive. And then they'd have to cut out that whole mediary, which is intermediary, which is just the retailer. They don't have to do that. They can go direct. That is fantastic. Now, I got to change the way we're talking for a second, Brittan. So we've been talking a lot about grocery and retail and some level of technology. I want to talk a little bit about a recent thing that I got more than anything because of your recommendation, just to understand the world of the metaverse. And so this right here, for the folks watching, you can't see it if you're on the audio. This is an Oculus 2. This is a product made by Meta, which is Facebook or whatever. And it's a virtual reality gaming system. And this is transformational. I remember the Nintendo coming out. I remember Monsters in My Pocket and Polly Pockets and how these things influenced me as a kid. And this gaming experience has made me think of some business ideas. And I want to run them by you, but not just me, Brittan. I can't take credit for that. I'm so excited to introduce my very good friend, Abby Haffenbrettel. Abby, how are you?
Hello, I am great. Nice to meet you, Brittan, and nice to see you again, Matthew.
Nice to meet you, Abby.
Thank
so
you.
Here's the thing. Brittan's in the middle. We are going to pitch you something, Brittan. And here's what I've experienced. I'm going to level set with what I've found with the VR headset. And Abby and I are going to talk to you about a potential use case that maybe you can write about that either Loves or Lowe's, Home Depot, or Menards might be interested in. So the thing about the VR headset is you put it on and it scans your surroundings. And it allows you to see things that aren't there. And what that allows you to do is you can go to outer space. You can fly in a rocket ship. You can hit little colorful boxes floating at you. But Abby, what are you thinking we could probably do with virtual reality?
So I think it would be really cool, and this is a little more probably for like a retail space, but a virtual closet. So like when I wake up in the morning and get ready for work, one of my biggest stressors is what am I going to wear? And I think if you could have some sort of virtual closet where you can try on clothes through VR or even like an app or something, know where everything is in your closet. You can basically scan all your items, scan yourself so you have your body measurements and you have like basically your replica of yourself in this world. And then I can just lay in bed and be like, okay, what do I want to wear today? Let me see. I'll pick this top and these pants and these shoes. Let's see if this all fits and works out. And then on the like Lowe's, Home Depot, Matthew and I were talking today about just like being able to design your space. So
your kitchen, your bathroom, your closet, using virtual reality to plan out a space and be able to buy it or do the process to start the quotation of big projects. Because this is the way some things will be bought in the future. And I wanted to pick the brain of the guy who's all about the metaverse. So maybe before we get into if you think there's some value here, what is the metaverse? What is this thing that everyone keeps talking about?
Well, it's interesting. And the way I describe the metaverse is what I say to people is the metaverse is a world where all constraints are removed. And the reason why I write about it that way and describe it that way is that if all we're saying is think of the metaverse as being the ultimate game on steroids, well, that has some meaning, but it limits your thinking as to what are you really going to use the metaverse for. So the metaverse, the way I started to write about it and the way that I've consulted on this topic is that I explain to people is the metaverse is where you design the next car, where you design a Mach 12 aircraft, to where you come up with new apparel, new fibers. And you're able to do that because if these fibers don't exist today that you would need to make certain outfits, it doesn't matter in the metaverse because the constraints are removed. You just create it. And you just basically say, this is what this fiber would do. And through all of the work in the metaverse, all of the research in the metaverse, you're eventually going to come up with it. But it gives you that ability to actually use it. The big thing also for the metaverse is that it's a way to live in a world that you wish you could live in. And so when I write about the metaverse, I talk about the shopping, the retail aspects of it. So if I say, you know what, I'm in the mood for Italian food. If I go to a supermarket today, I don't care where I'm at, Kroger or wherever, there's going to be pasta on a shelf. There's going to be tomato sauce. There's going to be tomatoes in the vegetable section. And that's actually quite boring. But in the metaverse, I'm actually in a shop and I'm looking out over the Mediterranean because now I'm in Corsica or someplace like that. Oh, and I don't only feel like I'm standing in Corsica or Sicily or Tuscany or wherever. I smell it because the headset actually recognizes the type of place you're going to be, and it has the ability to actually aromatize the air that you're breathing. I actually worked on that when I lived in Russia. And so the thing that is now I'm not only shopping for Italian food, but I'm immersed in Italian culture. I'm immersed in the smells. And so now what I find is that I want to not only buy pasta, but I want to buy even more things. And so what I have the ability to do by simply looking to the top right is I now changed the view from going from a retail store for groceries to now looking at a retail store for accessories and handbags and jewelry and other things. And I can do that all through the metaverse.
I love about the ability for the brand to give you the experience that they had never been able to do before. So kind of to Abby's point earlier about trying on and finding outfits. Well, now you can go to the store that's in Corsica and see their inventory and have this experience that never has existed before. And just putting on these headsets and seeing what's possible is just mind-boggling. And every brand, if they're not thinking about this now, they're going to have to, because the early adopters are going to be there. They're going to be there.
Correct. Now, here's the thing. I warn everybody, though. The only way this honestly becomes a reality in terms for commerce, because you can do great things in the metaverse, but without the logistics, it's almost impossible to have commerce. And so you have to have the ability that in the metaverse, you have the ability to see and purchase, where basically I'm not wanting, think of it this way. If I'm shopping in Tuscany, I don't want to have to grab something and then there I am walking down an aisle and I'm waiting to check out with a cashier who's Italian. I don't want that. What I want is to be able to do nothing more than look at something and it goes into my basket. I'm charged for it. And then I can get it. I can get it through a DoorDash or whomever. So the logistics piece for commerce is really critical for the metaverse to be a success. Now, Abby, and to your point about the virtual closet and that actually exists. I was a consultant for Overstock.com, and I was part of a team there. And what we came up with was a mirror that's very similar to a product called Tonal, Tonal. So Tonal is a workout system. And you've probably seen the commercials, and there's someone looking at you saying, "Go, Brittan, you can lift that weight." And but in this product that we developed for Overstock.com, it's basically you, and you have been scanned. All of your measurements have been scanned, and it basically is recognizing the time of year. You can set it up for seasonality and everything. So while you're sitting there putting on your makeup or whatever, or you're brushing your hair, you could be looking at outfits that you're trying on in the mirror. It's just using artificial intelligence to recycle it. When you find something you like, you can either use voice activation, or you can use, you can just simply walk over and tap it and say, "That's the outfit I want." You go to your closet and you basically then would pick it out. Go ahead.
Now, what if my closet is a mess and I want a closet organization system to just be able to do this, and then it comes down in a little string and is presented to me?
Well, so that also does exist. There are systems that do that. The trick is you still have to put the clothes on the hook. There's still effort that you have to put into it. It's not like not only do you have this really cool closet, but you get a little robot that goes around and picks up stuff and puts on it.
I want the little robot. I like that.
That's a little much at this part. As far as using artificial intelligence, AR, VR for designing a room, yes. We also designed our product at Overstock.com to where you could actually just take a picture of a room in your house. Even if you had furniture in it, you could download that into the app at Overstock.com, and it would remove all your furniture, but it would leave the exact room. And then you could just drag and drop what products you wanted, or you could say, "Design for me." And leveraging artificial intelligence, it would recognize all of the sizes of your room, the furniture, where it would go, and it would just start to populate that room with different types of furniture designs.
You take that same tech and put that into the VR stuff, and now you have a really interesting experience.
Absolutely. So that stuff actually does exist. There are other companies that have done that, but by 2030, and actually probably by about 2025, if we have this discussion in 2025, I guarantee you, Abby, you'll sit there and say, "This is the outfit that artificial intelligence picked out for me today."
We will be back in 2025. We will revisit this. So I will say that this
put it on our calendar.
Absolutely. I will say that the other idea that we had brainstormed was a virtual standing in line application where you could just virtually stand in a line from the comfort of your own home. I don't think that's very compelling, though, based on the conversation we've had so far.
Well, it kind of defeats the purpose. Why do I need to stand in a line to get a ticket? Why not just simply say, I'm going to use a will call window, or I'm going to pay extra and the ticket gets delivered to my Apple Watch or whatever, or it just comes to my phone and then I show up and they scan a barcode or something.
Absolutely. We don't want to make it more inconvenient for folks. Go ahead, Abby.
What about So something I've always thought about is it would be cool if you could basically live stream every bar or restaurant or wherever you might be going, library, so that I can see, like, when I'm at home, I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to go here, but not if it's super packed. Like, I don't want to go somewhere that's really busy, and just be able to, like, ooh, we should go to this place. Like, that would be something cool for VR, but I'm guessing that would have to do with the establishment if they like live
Well,
stream.
we're all being surveilled anyway, so maybe
Correct.
there is something.
So in all honesty, you don't need AR VR for what you would want. There are some cities, some states are using a website. I can't remember the name of it. I don't drink alcohol, so I don't go to bars. But you as a bar owner can sign up for it, and it allows customers to like check on your bar before they even arrive. And it tells you the wait time or whatever. And it basically lets you see what's the atmosphere there. Are people really having a lot of fun? Is it dead? Whatever. And again, that's something that you'll see more and more establishments take advantage of because it's so easy to do. It's nothing more than tapping into a camera system within their establishment. And then you basically, set it up and say, I'm really curious, what's Abby's bar doing tonight? That type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Abby, I have to kick you out because we have a couple more minutes left. But there will have to be a repeat. Oh, I'm telling you, for everyone watching, the comments are exploding. So, Brittan, just so you know, there's a ton of comments. We're just ignoring them all. This is the kind of material that I follow Brittain Ladd for, because and Brittan, you're here. So the things that you follow and focus on are so wide in terms of technologies, and the applications are so diverse that you spend a week following Brittan and you're going to learn a bunch more stuff. So I think that this has been a very fun time. So Abby, you have to go. She's gone. Brittan, she had to go.
Okay.
This is the part of the conversation. And I still see Abby in the background. So it's good to have you on, Abby. If anyone has questions for Brittan, this is the part where you get to ask them. I'm sure there's been some that have been put in the chat so far, but let's just go through a couple. We actually did this discussion earlier before we went live. What are your thoughts? I'm a big believer in Microsoft acquiring Netflix, but you were talking about some of the video game stuff too. So what are your thoughts on big deals that could help a company like Microsoft in the next couple of years?
So I was really one of the few people on LinkedIn that had written a post where I said, I believe Microsoft should acquire Activision Blizzard. I did that 3 days before it happened. It's
incredible.
Trust me, it wasn't that much brain power required to come up with that. Activision Blizzard, their stock was falling through the floor. Their CEO couldn't get out of his own way, and they needed someone to save them. And so when I looked at the companies up to that could possibly do it, Microsoft was the one that kept coming to the top. And I said, I believe Microsoft is going to acquire Activision Blizzard. What I also stated was, my fear is if they do it, then Microsoft is not going to be able to acquire Netflix. So that we'll have to see if they do that. When it comes to Netflix, the thing that I believe Netflix should have done, technically they could still do it. I've always believed Netflix is who should have acquired Twitter. Because if you look at the weakness of Twitter compared to like a TikTok or a YouTube, is that they really don't have much in terms of the video capability, the short form video, long form video. They don't have original programming. There's all kinds of things that you could do. And so when you combine a Netflix and a TikTok together, I think they would find a way to bring out the best in each other. But I also believe that it will allow them to make changes to Twitter to where, for people who say we want no controls of any kind, 100% free flowing conversation, no problem. We give you that access. We can let you do that. So I still believe that if Twitter loses their court case, I think it opens up the door for Netflix to write in as someone on the silver horse, on the white horse, I should say, and say, we'll take it off your hands.
That's an interesting point. So what are you thinking about Mr. Musk? Is he going to be a good owner of Twitter? Or do you think he has the possibility that he can get out of that deal?
Well, the challenge really becomes this. I can't find an example of where a court was able to successfully make someone buy something if they didn't want to do it. Yeah. So how are you going to get $44 billion from Elon Musk? Are you going to send agents to like take it out of his account?
Forced liquidation of some of his stock. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Even if he loses the court case, which I think it's possible, but it's also possible to win it because of the introduction of the whistleblower. Imagine the work that would take if Elon Musk says, come hell or high water, I'm not paying for this company. I want out. So I think that's where they're going to go behind closed doors. Someone else will step in and they'll come to an agreement that instead of, $54 a share of whatever it was, it'll be lower. And then they'll put it behind him. It's in Twitter's best interest to get this done quickly. They don't want this to turn into a circus. But I really don't know how the court case is going to turn out. I can make an argument. It can go either way.
Yeah. So where do you get your information? Like, what do you read? What is the places that you find that you get the best information?
In all honesty, I get it from the source.
Okay.
So I've written so much on LinkedIn. I've written so many articles. People know that I'm 100% honest. People know that when they tell me things, I don't reveal it at all. And so it's created a brand for me that I have executives who work for some of the largest companies globally, and they just simply reach out to me and say, I'd like to talk to you. And I'm like, perfect. And I'll ask one question. Do you want it on the record or off? And if they say off, we talk about everything. I've talked to people at Tesla. I've talked to people at Twitter who are senior executives. I talk to executives from Walmart and all these other companies, and they tell me what's really going on. They tell me, where I'm right in the things I write on my articles or whatever. Or they'll say, it's interesting you wrote this, but you didn't take it a step further.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And this is what we think you need to be aware of. And then I'm like, okay, I got it. So I get a lot of information directly from the source itself.
That's awesome.
But I also read the Wall Street Journal. I talk to a lot of journalists. A lot of people in the press reach out to me. A lot of Wall Street banks reach out to me because they just like the fact that I love to do research. I love to write about this. But what they like most is, again, I have no fear of saying, this is what I think will happen. This is what I recommend happens. Yeah. And I'm about 85% accurate. I'm wrong, 15% of the time, probably more actually. But it allows these individuals to have confidence that they can say to themselves, I'm going to talk with Brittan. And, I'm going to, for argument's sake, I'm going to say that Walmart should acquire FedEx. Let's say I'm a Wall Street bank. I'm going to say Walmart should acquire FedEx. What would Brittan say about that? And I'll tell them
what I have a question in the chat, but what would Brittan say about that acquisition of deal between?
I actually wrote that. I actually wrote that Walmart should acquire FedEx in 2017 for the first time.
Oh my goodness!
I wrote in 2016 that Walmart should acquire Shopify and not Jet.com. The ultimate goal in writing this stuff was that I truly believe Walmart made a mistake. Walmart should have acquired Shopify in 2016, and they should have acquired FedEx. And had they done that, I guarantee you that Walmart would be a much more dangerous company and a better competitor to Amazon. Acquiring Jet.com, in all honesty, really had no material impact on Walmart other than increasing certainly their e-commerce revenue, but they still only control about 7% of the online market. Amazon's nearly 50%. So I don't see how they really did anything special through that.
So here's a question from the audience. It says, they say that the metaverse will offer new levels of supply chain data. What are your thoughts on, supply chain and the metaverse? Is there a blockchain component to this, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's still up in the air exactly what the metaverse is going to come up with in terms of the data it will provide and the technology that they will leverage to do it. But again, in the metaverse, all constraints are removed. And so if I run Pfizer or I run Walmart or I run Amazon or whatever the company may be, Tesla, whatever, what I will be able to get is an unfiltered view of my supply chain. I'll be able to see exactly where everything is coming from. And if today I don't have systems that give me the transparency and the visibility, the metaverse is going to find a way to work around that. And I've spoken to people at Microsoft, I've spoken to people at Google, and the supply chain piece is really the thing that a lot of people know they have to put the focus on because of what I said earlier. commerce cannot exist in the metaverse without supply chain and logistics. And the thing to remember is that no one is going to be happy with an experience in the metaverse if it takes 2 or 3 days for what I order to arrive. Even same day is going to be too slow in many cases. And what people are going to want is precision. And they're going to want it that I see it, I buy it, and there's the message showing me it'll be at my house in an hour or my apartment. So what the metaverse is going to do is accelerate the importance of logistics, of transportation, of delivery. But then in the real world, you have to have systems that can actually do that. And that's what's really going to be interesting. So I have some people who will say, well, this is what I guarantee you the metaverse is going to do for supply chain. And I'm like, time out. Nobody knows what the metaverse is going to do yet. Hasn't been created. We're still in the first inning of this thing. And I've seen every rough draft, every proposed metaverse application out there. I wouldn't say all of them, but the majority of them. And I'm telling you, they're really unimpressive. They're so basic, but I see the potential.
Yeah, one of the things, we have a question from Lauren Began. We'll get to her in just a moment. But one of the things I was super impressed with just on the metaverse side was getting Cirque du Soleil, a little application on the Oculus, and being able to sit in the middle of the performance happening all around you for $6 or something. So this idea of new types of virtual things you can buy and experiences, again, never possible. But here's the question from Lauren. She wants to know, does Brittan own any NFTs? Is he dabbling in the NFT market? What do you think? What are you thinking about the NFTs? I just right click and copy the image and then I have it. But apparently that's not what you're supposed to do.
So the challenge I have is for me to be independent. I'm not able to do certain things. And so I've written about the NFT market. I meet with people who recommend NFTs. I do not own any NFTs myself. I've intentionally stayed away from them. It's one of those markets that everybody I knew was going to love for about 10 minutes. And then what they're going to wake up and they're going to say, how dumb could I have been to have spent $1 million for a Bored Ape picture who has a cigarette in his mouth and he's holding a martini glass. And so that's not where I see the value of the NFTs. I think that market has to evolve a bit. And then the things that the NFTs are going to evolve into, I think will have honest to goodness real value, almost to the level of paintings and jewelry and other things. But I've had discussions with some really bright people on Wall Street, people in Silicon Valley in California who are in the art world. And they're like, we're staying away from this. We dabble in it, but we know this isn't how this is going to end up. And so I'm waiting for that market to mature to where there's a little more stability in it, because I've seen people who have reached out to me already on LinkedIn and say, I bought this NFT and I paid $65,000 for it. And this morning I wake up and it's worth $3,000. So if you're not independently wealthy, I really advise you, don't be playing around in the NFT market. Not yet. Anyway.
We're actually over our time, but we'll have one more question and then we'll segue to the next thing. But Barry has a question here. He says, are you working on any projects on your own? What anything you're releasing in the future? He's looking for stock advice too. Everyone's looking for stock. Nothing in here is stock advice, everyone. No one take legal or financial advice from us in this context. But what
I do work on several projects. I'm doing stuff in robotics. I'm working with a company there. I actually designed one of the first micro fulfillment centers. I did that actually for Amazon before I went to work for them. And I am working with some vehicles that are autonomous vehicles. I'm working with things on vehicles that are going to create a new form of a new channel for delivery. I can't tell you who the company is, but they just went on a show where people pretend to be sharks and bid. So it was really quite exciting. That's my third company that I've worked with on that have appeared on the show. And I think they're going to do very well, but those are some of the things I'm working on. But again, it's more important for me to be able to give my honest opinion about things on LinkedIn and in my Forbes articles than to try and like own a bunch of stock or do a whole bunch of things in stock. Because again, I can't say I'm independent. So that's why I intentionally don't get involved in some of the things. Like I'm not in crypto. I've written about crypto. I didn't dabble in that too much. And what I did, I actually got rid of fairly early on, before I lost everything like a bunch of other people. So I really try and again, be as independent as I can. But the other thing to remember is people contact me for their big ideas and they ask me to turn their big idea into a reality. And so although I can't claim certain things to be my own, I am working on things for like new types of aircraft. I'm working on things.
You're a catalyst. You're a catalyst for innovation. You are a catalyst for innovation. People see you, and when you talk about them, they go, this guy knows something. He has an expertise that we need to understand. That, I think, is what makes your opinion so valuable. Now, we are over by 5 minutes, so I'm going to say thank you. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to take you off for a second.
Okay.
But before we end it, where can people find you? And we've talked about your LinkedIn and you talked about your website, but where else, where can people find Brittain Ladd?
The easiest thing to do is I have a commitment. I always respond to anyone who reaches out to me via LinkedIn. People from all over the world reach out to me. I don't believe I've ever missed responding to anybody. I greatly appreciate the fact that people listen to me, that they read my stuff. Just remember, I always love getting feedback. It's not like I'm perfect. It's not like I'm never wrong. And I love hearing differing opinions. And so again, I'm just grateful that people enjoy the things I'm doing, and I'm here for you and other people anytime that they want me on their show.
Oh, thank you so much, Brent. I'm going to take you off. Stick around. Ladies and gentlemen, my hope for you today was to get to know Brittain Ladd, one of the most interesting minds I have ever encountered in the 37 years I've walked this planet. And I hope that you have a chance to follow him, look at his content, engage with him. He is a prolific writer, an amazing thinker. As always, thank you for taking your time to watch the program or to listen to the program. We only do this because of you. There are no sponsors. There's no money we're doing. This is just to give a level of entertainment and information that you might find useful in your day-to-day life. So with that, I'm going to say, find me on the Apple Podcast or find it on Spotify. If you want to listen to the broadcast, find us on YouTube or on LinkedIn. And of course, now we have TikTok, thanks to Brittain's recommendation. And as always, thank you for coming in. Have a great day. Then I hit the end broadcast button and then it stops.